Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. We're just going to wait a minute or two for everyone to get on the line here with Teams, so just hang tight. All right, so we are going to get started. My name's Maddie. I'm an enrollment advisor with Acadia. Might have met a few of you if you're incoming students, but I'm going to be your moderator today for this session. So just going to go over a few housekeeping items, our agenda for the session, and then I'll, of course, hand it over to the experts to go through our faculty webinar today. So we're just going to do a few intros, fall 2020 course format overview. You're going to hear from the faculty some frequently asked questions, things like that. And then at the end, we will do a live Q&A. There's a chat box, should be to your right there on the screen, that you're able to ask questions. You can type them at any point in the webinar and we will address them, or as many of them as we can, at the end of the session. So today on the line, oh, sorry, housekeeping. So again, we are using Microsoft Teams today, and just so everyone knows, there is usually about a 20-second delay. So for example, if you are typing a question and you don't see it pop up right away, that's okay. It will eventually show up and you will have that answered. So just keep that in mind. During the Q&A session at the end, we will answer as many as we can, but I do have to stay within the hour time slot we have. But if you have more questions, we'll be sure to drop an email address to send them to, or you can reach out directly to Enrollment Services or myself or any of our faculty members we have on the line today. July 10th, I know it's not July 10th today, but tomorrow you will be receiving an email on the courses that you're registered for and what you can expect those to be delivered. So the format that we are going to be delivering courses, that email will be sent out tomorrow, so make sure you keep an eye on that. If you're new to Acadia, incoming first year perhaps, highly recommend checking out our Acadia 101 sessions. The little arrows pointing there in the bottom. Sorry, I think my connection just went there. But anyways, check out Acadia 101. Those will give you some tips and tricks for your first year. And we do have the Faculty of Science webinar coming up tomorrow. You don't have to be in the Faculty of Science to check that webinar out. Highly recommended if you're in science electives. And we had the Faculty of Arts yesterday. These are recorded and will be posted online. So sorry, folks, my connection's a little wonky today. But again, all these webinars will be recorded and posted online, so you can check them out later on. We did have a fall information this afternoon at 1 o'clock. There's another one coming up this evening at 6:30. So those are more operational webinar sessions. If you have questions about campus navigation, dining hall visits, those are great webinars to have those questions answered. And today we're just going to focus on academics. So on the line today, we have Dr. Ann Vibert, the Dean of Professional Studies.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon.
I might just jump in here and help Maddie out a bit. Apologies for her internet connection. She's having a bit trouble right now. So I'll take a moment to introduce our panel that will be joining us today. So as Maddie alluded to, we have our Acting Dean of Faculty of Professional Studies. Also joining us from the Director of School of Kinesiology is Dr. Renee Murphy. Director of the FC Manning School of Business is Paul Callahan. And then lastly, we have Dr. Christiane Rushton from the Director, School of Music. And Dr. John Colton as well, Head of Community Development. So at this time, I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Vibert and ask her to run us through our course formats.
Yes, everyone. So as you know, this is not going to be your usual university year due to the interruption of COVID. However, we have worked really hard to put together formats for course and program delivery that offer maximum flexibility to students. So first and foremost, of course, we will have a small number of courses that are available for in-person delivery. Those will be delivered on campus. And of course, there are, physical distancing restrictions and building access restrictions and so on, which will be in place around on-campus delivery. We do have a number of courses that are offered, courses are offered under hybrid delivery. And hybrid delivery is a flexible course structure that combines both the opportunity for on-campus classroom-based learning and virtual learning at the same time. And those in some cases they're scheduled so that you're actually using, for instance, a Microsoft Teams or Zoom to come into the classroom when the course is going on, or they can be unscheduled, whereby folks might, for instance, record the class as it's happening on site, and that'll be available on the Acorn site for students at a distance. And virtual, there are a number of courses that are virtual, and in those cases, all the content is delivered virtually. Some of those are scheduled, and that's where, we all meet together on a virtual site to carry out the class. And some of them are unscheduled, and that is where there is a course site that you can work through, in your own time, on your own schedule. I mean, there are deadlines that are set weekly and so on. Okay, so the directors and heads have offered to give examples of each, and perhaps we'll start with Paul Callahan on the hybrid.
Oh, okay, thank you, Anne. Yeah, I must say, first of all, welcome all, and thanks for committing some time to today. And it feels good to be at this stage. We've been busy ever since the term wrapped up to start preparing for the fall. So it's good to be at the stage of being able to start to communicate some of the details out to you. So I will say the hybrid model is the challenging one. Of course, it is virtual, but it's challenging because we're trying to do two things. Of course, we're trying to deliver in our normal mode, if you wish, in the class, but also augment that with a virtual experience. So I will not so much give you an example of a specific course, but I'll give you a sense of the types of techniques or tactics that are being used to achieve this hybrid delivery. And so it's really, there's four things that really fundamentally have to be addressed in the design. And one is, what does happen face-to-face and as instructional content for that mode? What happens in terms of what's being produced or documented for remote virtual consumption, if you wish, or to engage in the instructional material by distance? And then there's, underlying it all is how do the students remain engaged and communicate within the class cohort, and then the last piece of assessments, testing and assignments and that sort of thing. So there's really, my view, there's these four broad things that faculty have to be very attentive to in terms of making sure the elements, all these elements are thoroughly designed, rigorously designed to make sure it does provide that hybrid option. Now, for instance, for face-to-face delivery, of course, it's business as usual, if you wish, with unusual circumstances, other than, sessions will be recorded, and those recorded for those that can't, are out of sync in terms of time zone, or for whatever reason can't attend live, but they will also be broadcast. The face-to-face sessions will be broadcast for those that can attend live remotely. Okay, so that's one thing that'll happen. Put some additional kind of responsibilities, if you wish, on being engaged in the classroom if you're doing so remotely, but there's techniques and means to do that, chat functions and so forth. And if you're out of sync time-wise, probably some expectations that you submit questions for the class in advance, and so that the professor can be assured that they address them. Okay, and then if I shift, I got to be mindful of time here. There's a lot to cover, but when you then shift to the documented content that will be available, there will be, as I noted, recordings of sessions, face-to-face sessions, but there'll also be some pre-recorded materials as well. And it's not necessarily, talking heads, like looking at a professor speaking into a screen such as this. There's other ways to document the content, and for instance, kind of a voiceover of instructional design of some quantitative analytical material in a spreadsheet, or in a PowerPoint presentation with some sort of, concepts, principles, graphic examples of marketing materials or something such as that. So that there will be a lot of efforts, and a lot of efforts are underway to document course content in that manner, so it's a bit readily available by distance. And the students that are attending face-to-face, of course, will have access to that material as well. Okay, and so and as I've said, there's in terms of engagement, communications within the course, a very big component of how courses are being designed is attending to that. There will be Q&A forums. You see an example of it right now in Microsoft Teams. It's not the only means, though. There's within Microsoft Teams, you can have breakout working groups where while a class is underway or session's underway, you can be on the side for a part of it as a team of 4 or 5 of you in a group chatting with something to bring back to the session at a schedule point in the session. So there's lots of tools, if you wish, and of course with the variety of content and the variety of preferences in terms of what works best for a particular professor and for a particular course, there's going to be a lot of derivatives, but of how these tools are employed. But the bottom line is that it will be available. These hybrid courses will be available for those of you that can get back on campus and will attend the face-to-face sessions, and also available for those who are registered remotely. Okay, so I'll leave it at that, because I know some of the details will come up in some of the questions that follow.
And I think Renee was going to speak to an example of virtual lab.
Sure. So an example of a lab that we would have traditionally done on campus would have been an exercise physiology lab in my course, for example, where we would have the students come in and do pre-testing. And that would involve, in the past, it's been, the number of push-ups you can do, or the number of sit-ups you can do, or something along those lines. And then they would have a training period, usually 4 to 6 weeks. And then we would do another live session where they would come in and be tested again at the end of the training session to illustrate training principles. And different groups of students would train in different ways. So they may do training once a week. They may do training every day. They may do specific training. So if it's push-ups that was required, they would train doing push-ups. If it was sit-ups, then they would train doing sit-ups. Or they may do non-specific exercises to look at the transfer of certain skills over a period of time. So that would normally be done in an exercise physiology lab on campus. With a hybrid or a remote delivery, then I would just simply shift the onus of the pre and post testing to the students at home. And so we may ask students, for example, to videotape themselves doing a standing long jump and measuring their standing long jump, and then training for that long jump over a period of 4 to 6 weeks. X number of times per week for different groups, doing vertical jumps for a different training modality as opposed to a long jump for another group, for example. And then post-testing, again, maybe videotaping and recording the length of your after training long jump, and submitting that data, pooling all that data together for the whole class, and then writing up the lab report on the training principles application to the data that's come out of the exercises. So the change would be the pre and post testing effectively being done in maybe small groups if you have other students in the class that are available to test with you, or at home if you're in a remote distance location that you can't participate virtually. You could still get all of the application of the process that we wanted the students to achieve through that lab exercise.
Thanks, Renee. And I think Christiane was going to speak to an example of a music course, on a virtual music course.
Sure. Thank you, Anne. The number one question we get about music courses is, how do you teach the one-on-one lesson component? So I'll just speak to that one since it's the number one concern. But I will say all the courses have been redesigned in ways that keep us safe with either online, virtual, or socially distanced practices. But the number one concern for students is how do I do that one-on-one lesson with my teacher, that teacher that we build a connection with? And there's a couple of ways that we're planning to do that, but I can tell you the number one way to keep us safe for the fall will be to be in a video circumstance. And so we'll record our teaching to you, and you'll record your playing or your singing for us. And we will have multiple files on the go throughout the week. And we'll be sending those files through probably the platform Office 365, which allows us to do both documents and audio-visual files. And then at the end of that week, whenever our lesson time would be together, we would come together synchronously together at a certain time for 20 to 30 minutes and make sure that what was sent back and forth via video and via document was clear to the student. So it would be your chance to ask the questions, and that would be, of course, done online as well. So we would do it in this format. We'd have the conversation, we'd bring up the file, you'd ask your question, or you'd play or sing a little bit for me at that point. We would check in with each other and we would move on to the next week's assignment at that point together. And so really the decision for the fall for your lessons, for your one-on-one applied lessons for the School of Music, is that we will be in a virtual format. There is a lot of research right now swirling around about the safety of aerosol components, which is, of course, as a singer or a wind player, the primary concern. So we've decided for your fall lessons that will be the way that we communicate and that the way we actually have the lessons happen. I can tell you just anecdotally that we've practiced on a few students this summer, and actually the response has been really positive. So I don't want you, if you're in music, to think that this is a lesser experience. In fact, you need to touch base with your teacher even more than you would when you saw them once a week. So that's for music. Thanks so much.
All right. So we're going to go into the questions here. Hopefully my internet, I moved right next to it, so hopefully it's a little bit better. But the first question I have is for Dr. Murphy. So when will I know the course format for each of the courses I'm registered in for the fall? What does hybrid look like for me?
All right, so I think we've already touched on a little bit of both of those, but basically the plan is for the registrar's office to release the format for each of the courses on the timetable tomorrow, Friday, July 10th. And so students beginning at that point in time will be able to review each of the courses they're registered for, each of the labs that they're registered for, and see the format that's being applied to those units of time on their timetable. What does hybrid look like for me? Again, I can give you another example of some of the planning that's taking place in the School of Kinesiology, in particular in an athletic therapy assessment course, for example. So normally we would have these courses face-to-face and these labs face-to-face, and the instructor would do a demonstration, and the students in the class or in the lab would observe that demonstration and then practice on each other the assessment methodologies that they've been taught. The professors in that area are now looking at doing those sessions with small groups live. So some students will be in the classroom, they will be recorded. So there will be a camera on a tripod that will give the same visual that a student that would be attending face-to-face would be able to see. But they also requested GoPros so that they can wear them on their heads so that they can give a clinical or clinician's view of what's happening. So I think they're actually doing a better job of providing the students with the tools that they'll need to do the assessments. Those videos will all be uploaded. Students will be able to see them over and over again as opposed to that one time in the class. And then we'll be able to practice with each other. Again, we'll have cleaning supplies for the therapy tables. We'll have PPE, gloves, masks, etc. for the students that are in those small groups. And the lab sections will effectively be smaller because of the social distancing requirements that we're going to follow in the fall. So a class or a lab that would normally have 16 students may only have 6 or 8 students, depending on the size of the room and the ability to social distance those students. So, so that's an example of what a hybrid class and lab in athletic therapy might look like in the fall.
All right, thanks, Dr. Murphy. So the next question is
sorry,
for
if I may just, sorry, Maddie, if I could just add a couple comments there. Yeah, the only thing I just wanted to add to what Renee just spoke to is that there is you know, we couldn't have 12 variants of modality. So I just caution you that when you see something like I'll say, speak for the School of Business, when you see AB, which is hybrid unscheduled instruction, it doesn't mean if you're attending remotely that you can't join in on live synchronous sessions as well. We just wanted to make sure that people didn't feel that there wasn't going to be an option for both, that even if you couldn't be in sync with time zones, you still could register for the course, or the course will still be available to you. Okay, and then the other thing I'd note is that on hybrid models, when you see that your courses are hybrid, the professors will be in communication with you soon to sort of give some of the specifics around what hybrid looks like in that particular course. Okay, so I just wanted to get that in.
Thanks, Paul. Okay, next question is for Dr. Colton. So Acadia faculty is known for providing a personal connection. How will this change in a virtual or hybrid model?
Well, of course, and by the way, thanks everyone for taking the time to join this webinar today. And some of what I'm about to share has already been shared by some of the other presenters. I mean, Acadia is known for working hard to create a learning community overall, but certainly within the various departments, it's something that we stress quite a bit. And certainly we know that there's going to be a lot of changes this fall in terms of the hybrid or online courses, whether they're scheduled or unscheduled. And what I'm about to share too is certainly going to change from course to course, and certainly from instructor to instructor, and also might depend on the size of the class. So I've spoken with a few people, for example, in my program and outside the program, to prepare for this webinar in terms of ways they might consider engaging students. And you know, certainly an important part is to continue providing one-on-one time, you know, just like we might do it with office hours, but certainly providing that, making that space available online. I think Paul mentioned breakout rooms in Zoom. One thing that's been highlighted is the fact that a lot of us have been working really hard to not only move content online, but just as importantly, really work hard on learning how to engage students online, and certainly how we might do that in the classroom, which we already do well at in the hybrid situation. And I just finished teaching an online course that was moved online just recently, and so just in a very short amount of time, it was a relatively small group, of course, 25 students, but I met them individually in class, before class, sometimes after class, but certainly we had breakout sessions as well, and that seemed to work well. One of the things that you might see is that some professors may flip the way they teach courses and maybe expect you to do some more work in terms of looking at the presentations and notes and holding that online space, for example, for mainly discussion time, as opposed to providing a lecture format on slides that you already have available to you. So that's what I found in the course I just taught, which was a wonderful way to engage the students, and this, particularly as they worked hard to cover the material prior to our sessions. We could engage in very, very wonderful discussions around the issues that the course was based around. Things that I've heard from other professors in the last few days is something like creating a buddy system within a course, so students have maybe one or two people or a triad to check in with as they move through the course, whether they are just discussing assignments or even working on assignments together. I know some students will have experienced group work, and that may or may not happen in some courses, but it can still be done effectively, online when students are not, in the same geographic area, and we've seen very good examples of that in our current online courses that Acadia is offering. So I've heard of some professors in courses right now using journals in smaller classes, obviously, to work individually with students and to look at their journey of learning throughout the course. I think first and foremost, the work that we're doing, as I already said, is that in addition to the content, it's really focused on taking time to learn best how to engage students in the class. And I could give you lots and lots of different examples of how we can do that. And I've just given you just a number of different examples. But but once the timetable comes out, and it's very soon likely that your professors will be checking in with students in the coming months, especially determining those who will be arriving for the face-to-face hybrid courses, or those who are just going to be participating online. And then certainly more of that will be shared with you once you have your timetable and you're able to communicate with your professor. So I'll pass it back to you, Maddie.
All right. So question 3 I have for Paul. What if I'm in a different time zone but want to attend a hybrid scheduled course?
Okay, the wise guy answer is get up early or stay up late. I'm kidding, of course. No, I already made mention of some that, that certainly is an option, and so I won't. That's not completely being silly, because as I've noted, those hybrid courses will be made available to be broadcast as well. So if you can stretch your timeline a bit, then that's going to be an option. But if you can't, and there is, face-to-face sessions will be recorded, and a certain amount of content will be pre-recorded anyway for both you and the students that will be attending face-to-face. So that's going to be available to you. The other thing I would note is, as Anne noted, we'll have to be very specific around scheduling, and the schedule will be in terms of deadlines and so forth. And so, for instance, if there's a class assignment due and it involves some sort of sharing of your analysis or views on a topic, then for those attending remotely, one scenario would be you'd be expected to submit in advance of the class, so your classmates have a chance to consider that, and you would be able to see their views on your assessment, your analysis later. But also there is this thing, discussion forums can be very rich forums. They don't have in an asynchronous mode, as in coming in and out of it based on your timing, because it captures everybody's views, and you can sit back and contemplate and think before you wade into conversations. So I've had a fair bit of experience in teaching in a context that relies heavily on that, and it can lead to some really rich, deep, and insightful discussions. So there are some things that just frankly work better when you have time to sit back and consider things. So those discussion forums can be quite effective asynchronously, so that you're not necessarily in the same time zone. Okay, so but as mentioned, the big work to be done though is to make sure that you do feel engaged and part of the class, and so that's John's mentioned a number of tactics that will be done to do so. And that's, the teams, lots of functions in teams, so that you will be part of groups if there's group work, and you will be, working in environments that allow you to share documents, share your research, and so forth to work in a team in a virtual environment. So, so that's an overview of how this we will address the issue of time zone differences.
Beautiful. Okay, don't know if anybody has anything else to add. I did just want to mention we do have quite a few questions in the queue, so we will be addressing those at the end, just so everyone knows. If your question doesn't pop up right away, there are quite a few in there. So question 4 I have is for Dr. Rushton. If I'm an incoming student, what can I do to be better prepared?
That's a super question, in fact. And I think regardless of COVID, but of course, because of COVID, everybody's wanting to know what they can do and what they will be able to do before they arrive. So I have a few suggestions. And the first comes even just by looking at some of the questions that are coming in from you right now. My first answer would have been to reach out to your department. Some of the questions that are coming in that I see that we'll get to, your department probably has a Q&A coming up, or a webinar, or at least an email back and forth between the admin assistant or the director or a faculty member. And quite frankly, that is your go-to place. Get to know those people. Don't hesitate to write an email. Don't hesitate to have your questions answered directly at the source. You're going to feel more comfortable with the answer, but also if you're asking the question, the odds are someone else is asking the same question. So don't hesitate. Don't worry about us receiving so many emails. We want you to be comfortable, and we want you to have the correct information. And as you're hearing here today, the Faculty Professional Studies is made up of very unique disciplines. And so the answers to some of these questions will be as unique as your discipline. And so you'll want to speak to the director of your field. So that's my first suggestion. Spend the time this summer asking your questions and getting to know the director and your administrative assistant, and reaching out to faculty members. A second idea would be to get to know this platform, get to know what Teams is. It will be used a lot on your time on campus. Understand how your Acadia email works, figure that out early. Figure out what Acorn looks like. Make sure your registration and your Acadia Central course backpack looks good. Take care of whatever you can from an understanding the technology perspective. Spend that time playing and speaking to friends this way and getting to understand what the technology will do for you. So there's less of a learning curve for you in the beginning. And finally, take the time between now and September 24th start date to take advantage of what Maddie spoke about at the very beginning, which is the Acadia 101 experience. There's lots of great opportunities to click on that platform and find webinars or discussions or pieces of information that exist to help you with some of the very many questions that I see that you already have. And again, don't ever hesitate to reach out. Acadia is here to help, and every single person here on the call today wants you to have the right information. Hope that helps.
Awesome, thanks, Dr. Rushton. And yeah, just to kind of echo that point, we do want to hear from you. If you're an incoming first year student, hopefully you've gotten the chance to speak with an enrollment advisor too. And if you want to start with a familiar face, we'd be happy to kind of start that conversation with your department as well. So again, don't hesitate to reach out to anyone. All right, question 5 is for Dr. Vibert. So, how will my class schedule change based on COVID protocols, i.e. cleaning between face-to-face class sessions?
Yeah, hi folks, just trying to find the mute button there for a second. Yes, your class schedule will likely change based on the COVID cleaning protocols. We've had to put in 40 minutes between classes in order to, the face-to-face, of course, classes, in order to clean the rooms between classes. And that will become clear to you tomorrow when the timetable is made available on July the 10th. And it has the modalities and the times of the classes and so on. So some of the classes will switch a little later than they were as a consequence of the cleaning of the classrooms between classes. So that's the quick answer to that one.
All right. And last question, for those classes that are mostly in class, how much of the class will be in person versus online? So I don't know if the different faculty members might want to take a stab at this. It could be very different depending on which department you're in, I guess.
I think probably the first thing to establish there, it's me again, and the first thing to establish there is that it's not, the delivery of classes this fall is not intended that some of it will be in class and some of it will be online or remote. We tend to use the word remote because that's broader. That includes online delivery as well as delivery through these technologies, through Teams, through synchronous technologies. So if you are in class, you'll get the full course. And if you are online, you will get the full course. And we will use these technologies to make sure that in hybrid classes, both of these experiences are available. Okay. As Dr. Rushton said, I think really, as we go along later in the summer, the best way to communicate, the best thing to do to sort of clarify your questions is to get in touch with the academic unit and get in touch with your professors. I know that the academic units are setting up webinars. There are also, various people are setting up virtual office hours. And you can always connect with instructors through the Acorn course sites, of course, once those are available to you. So when you have specific questions, I would, because people will respond to these differently, and they will, faculty I know are eager to do whatever they can to support students through this time. So direct your questions to the academic units and to the instructors around the delivery issues. Okay.
All right. Does anybody else have anything to add to that last one there, or we're going to move on? Okay. So just a few follow-ups now. Can we switch to the, I don't know if there's a little delay there.
If we go into the Q&A section, Maddie, we have some of the published open questions that we can refresh.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we're going to get through as many as we can. We do have quite a few. We have about 20 minutes left, but again, we will be kind of compiling an FAQ document that we'll publish as well if we don't get through all of the questions today. So the first question we have is how will we be tested if we choose to take online courses at home? Don't know who wants to take a stab at that. Could be different depending on the faculty department again.
I can take an initial stab at that, Maddie. Well, first of all, it's, you know, it's not, assessment is not all about tests. I mean, there is group projects, written reporting and so forth, and of course it will vary. But speaking to the one of a test or a quiz, there is software available to us for you to write a test that is, you know, basically a code provided for you to sign into the test at a pre-assigned time, and you'll be, you know, restricted to that platform during the writing of the test. Of course, the instructor will have some decisions to make in terms of whether a test is open book versus closed book and so forth. But it is basically well-established technology in the online teaching world of how to administer tests and quizzes online, and it's basically, you know, you open it up and you are then under a time clock just as you would be in a face-to-face environment. And with some, you know, I don't want to get into the policing scrutiny of the integrity of that, but that's a variety of you know, it depends on the nature of the questions about how and if that's necessarily an issue. Okay.
And I concur with Paul, and there's a lot of great technology to do that. And I've spoken with other faculty, and some professors will also be moving to what might have been called take-home type tests, where very thoughtful questions that that allow you to take your time and use the material that you've had available to you to support the course, and to take your time and give those thoughtful responses. And I also echo that goes back to what Paul said when we're talking about synchronous versus asynchronous versus synchronous environments, and the ability to sort of sit back and think. There's a different style of learning. You have that pause that you often get in an online learning environment that you might not always get when you're in the classroom, and so there are other ways of assessment that don't always obviously involve tests. That's a combination of the work that you've done throughout the term. I suspect that you're going to see a combination of many of these throughout your different classes.
Okay, thank you. So the next question we have, what will opportunities look like for accounting students in their final year? So Paul, again, I'm not sure if you want to work on this one.
Sorry, specifically for accounting students?
Yes.
Everything's on track to. Oops, am I on mute? Nope. The full slate of courses are available, so there won't be any interruption in completing your requirements. I mean, I know that all the accounting courses are relatively large. I mean, obviously not as big as the introductory level courses for those of you that are majoring in accounting, but they're in the 30s, 40s. So there are a few things underway to try to really ensure that those courses are delivered rigorously, thoroughly. For instance, what I'd call split shifts. If for those of you on campus, if we really find that by accommodating both face-to-face and remote students, the just doesn't work to have class sessions of 30. Let's say there's 30 on campus and 10 remote. If there's some burden, if you wish, put on how to best administer a course in that regard. So it might be that you show up in smaller sections of face-to-face of about 15 and just split once a week. You come face-to-face, the other time you're attending virtually. So that's a long-winded and kind of a little bit of a tangent, but there is no interruption in the courses and for the accounting major. It's all on track.
Okay, next question, maybe for Dr. Vibert. For those in education, will there be an option to complete our teaching placement in the winter remotely, similar to the alternative teaching placement completed this past year when the pandemic struck, as some of us live with vulnerable groups for the virus?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. and not one which it's easy for me to answer, because what will be happening around practicum in the winter isn't just dependent upon the School of Education or Acadia University, but of course upon the province's guidelines around schools and so on. So as folks in education, students in registered in education undoubtedly know, the practicum has been moved to the winter term, and in the hope that some form of in-school placement will be available for education students in the winter, by winter. If that's not the case, then the way in which practicum will be delivered will get worked out not just by the School of Education at Acadia or Acadia University, but by the faculties of education in the province of Nova Scotia in collaboration with the Provincial Department of Education and Child Development. So the universities have to work with the school system in order to provide the practicum. And we don't really know what the winter's going to look like around the virus at this point. And of course, how the practicum unfolds will be absolutely dependent upon how the virus unfolds and what the provincial health regulations are around public schools. Okay, so I mean, some form of online practicum is often a possibility, and if the virus is still present enough that it's dangerous for folks who have pre-existing conditions, etc., to go into schools, then arrangements will need to be made around that. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Vibert. So this one is for Dr. Rushton. For music students, how will ensembles, lessons, and juries be taking place?
Super, thank you. And I do see a lot of questions about music. So hello, music students. Great to have you here. To let you know two things. The first is your faculty is working on a very long and detailed email coming your way about all kinds of answers to the things that I see you asking. And the second is that we're planning a webinar with this very group, with student services, to answer live those kinds of questions. So there is another opportunity for those very specific music questions to be answered. Thanks for being here today, and I'll do the best I can for you. First, let me remind you that what I said earlier was that applied lessons will be online, will be virtual, will be remote for the fall. That isn't courses, that isn't all music courses. And so make sure that you understood the difference. If you're new to the School of Music, applied courses are those one-on-one components. It's your lessons. It's not your coursework. It's not the academic courses. So I did want to clarify that and make sure that that was understood. The second component is that we don't yet know all the parameters surrounding what the year will look like come December, right? We don't know whether we'll be allowed, due to Nova Scotia government regulations or university regulations, to be in person, to do in-person juries. So the answer to the jury question is yet to be decided. Our hope would be to be able to have you do something live in person to a very small group of faculty to give you that assessment tool, but we need some more information before we make that call. And so if you're following any of the studies on music and aerosol dispersion, we're following them too. And so I would rather err on the side of caution and say we don't yet know, we haven't made that decision. There will be a form of a jury. We don't want, we don't want to not give you the opportunity to have an assessment, but we don't yet know whether it will be live or not. And the further component to that question was about ensembles. And that's a really fair question, because ensembles is where we love to make music together, and it's where we come together to do so. Ensembles for the fall will be dependent on your ensemble. So it will differ depending on what ensemble you're in, and there will be a hybrid mix of what each ensemble director is doing regarding the safety of their ensemble, okay? So you will hear more about that in the coming days, but each ensemble director with the provincial guidelines and the health authorities are making decisions to keep all of you safe, but ensembles will be running, as will lessons, and of course coursework as well. It will just feel a little bit different. And for the fall, for sure, the number one thing is to keep you all safe, but don't worry, we're going to be together in one form or another. Thanks for the question.
All right, great answer, thank you. All right, so next question. The professional studies courses are unique to the other disciplines because of its importance on hands-on learning. This could provide a challenge online learning. Will there be a uniform way to tackle the hands-on learning across the faculty by department?
I don't think there'll necessarily be a uniform method across the faculty. I think what you're going to find is that you'll have, like, for example, in community development, we spent a lot of time discussing it as a program, how we want to approach applied learning. And for many of our face-to-face courses, so for example, environmental education being taught by Dr. Mary Sweetman and Alan Warner, they will be actually doing a lot of it. They will still be able to teach that course and use the outdoors as their classroom. You know, obviously keeping in mind, you know, health and safety guidelines. But in terms of applied learning, you know, we may or may not be able to spend time directly with communities, but I've found that we've been able to pivot fairly quickly to connect our students with organizations, even students that were signed up to do sort of summer co-ops. Have been able to develop a lot of very important applied learning opportunities. For example, we have a second year student right in our program now who is doing co-op for us, and her applied learning opportunity is developing a mentorship program for all new incoming community development students. So that's also a part of helping engage students as well on campus and supporting that learning community and the social connections once you enter university. And so there's certainly not going to be a uniform format across faculties, but I would think program to program and probably likely professor to professor, you're going to see differences in how we apply that. I think Paul has something to share.
Yeah, but I do. I mean, anybody else, of course, can weigh in. But echoing some of the things John mentioned, the co-op office is very busy working on, as one of the forms of applied learning, of course, co-op placements, which is fairly significant in the business school. Very busy working to make potentially virtual co-op placements work. Is a simple way to say that. And I'd also just note that, you know, any kind of applied learning that involves engaging with outside organizations, as John suggested, that can readily happen still. And so I know, for instance, in small business management, that course is very much geared towards engaging 3 or 4 local businesses in the course, and that work will still continue. It's just that the mode of interaction with your client, if you wish, is going to happen differently in that course because it's virtual. And I'll say that, you know, this whole familiarity of working within this environment, these environments, is itself applied learning and or work integrated learning, if you wish, because it's not uncommon for, you know, in the business world and other worlds for people to engage and communicate and collaborate in this mode. So that's just another sort of related issue to that issue, and to the question of applied learning and experiential learning opportunities.
Thank you. Okay, we have about 5 minutes left, so we're going to try and cover a few more. So will students be penalized if they're unable to
take me down? Excuse me.
Oh. If they're unable to attend a class that is set up in the hybrid mode that they otherwise would attend, or will there be lenience in attendance? So I assume that this question means attending a class in person if it's hybrid. So will they be penalized for not being able to attend in-person classes?
I might respond to that. It's a kind of general policy question in a way. So no is the short answer. If it is a hybrid class and it has a face-to-face and virtual delivery mode associated with it, then you can participate in either one of those modes, and there is no expectation that there'd be some kind of preference for you to be in the actual face-to-face class in terms of your performance in the course, right? So in hybrid courses, all aspects of the course will be available both in the face-to-face mode and through the virtual mode, and there isn't a preference for one over the other. If you mean, do you need to come to the hybrid course if it's opened or if it's offered as a scheduled virtual course? Yes, you do. Attendance would be, I would imagine that in most cases, attendance at a scheduled virtual course will be treated in precisely the same way as attendance at a face-to-face on-campus course. Okay?
Thanks, Dr. Vibert. So are the professors of each faculty receiving the appropriate training in order to give us the expected course learning experience?
I'm going to just respond to that one too, if you don't mind, and then I can let any of my colleagues jump in there. But in a general way, the answer to that question is absolutely. They are experts in their fields to begin with, and that is the appropriate training. But I think you might be referring to support for virtual teaching. And yes, that has been made available to faculty across the campus, and faculty have regularly accessed the workshops on teaching online and so on. People are actively involved in studying best practices around virtual teaching at Acadia.
Thank you.
Could I just add?
Oh, yeah.
And mention it, but there's a lot of us that do have experience in the virtual world already. Open Acadia has been offering online course delivery for years, and not only in that context, in some other contexts as well. So we have, in addition to the supports that are being available now to gear up more broadly, there is experience on campus, and there's a lot of sharing and collaboration across within faculties and across faculties with those that have the experience sharing with others. So lots of work going on to make sure we're all prepared for the fall.
All right, gonna try and sneak one more in here. So I was just wondering, with the later term start date, if courses will cover the same content in less time, or if 2 weeks worth of content will be cut out from the courses.
I can take it, Maddie.
Thank you.
Hi. So the easy answer to that one is that courses are redeveloped and redefined regardless of COVID. So first of all, I don't believe it is actually a 2-week loss. I believe when we actually counted the days, it's a few less than that. But I don't believe that course content will be drastically reduced. I think it might be shifted. And I think the faculty currently working at what that means for the fall really understand that with a few fewer days, it actually isn't a full 2 weeks of loss, that there's definitely a way to shift content. Remember, they're doing that anyway because of the online platform, right? They're looking at the courses with new eyes anyway. So there would be an opportunity to make sure that the content that was really important was still there and still saved and not simply lopped off the end. I don't believe that any faculty would be thinking about doing it that way.
Thank you. All right, so unfortunately we are out of time. We did have quite a few questions, so sorry if we didn't get to yours, but we will be compiling an FAQ document. Just to remind you, keep an eye out on your emails tomorrow for that email regarding your course delivery. Again, there's a lot more webinars to check out. 6:30 tonight, Atlantic time, there is the The fall information session, again, that's more operational questions that will be answered, so you can have an opportunity to ask questions there. If you do have more questions, again, as we mentioned throughout, feel free to reach out to your department, feel free to reach out to Enrollment Services. We do have an Acadia email address, a general one that is just Acadia, the number 4, the letter U at acadiau.ca. So please feel free to send your questions there. And I just wanted to take a quick minute to thank all of our presenters today. Thank you for being on the line and for answering questions. And for everyone on the line today, we're excited to hopefully welcome as many people back in the fall as possible. So thanks again for joining us and have a fantastic evening.